County Conversation podcast is sponsored by Daffabet, the world's leading online betting site. To find out more, visit daffabet.com. Hello and welcome to the County Conversation, the show where we take the three most interesting stories from the last week of county cricket and give you the inside track to them here. I'm Cameron Ponsonby.
I'm Nick Friend.
Take one, 2 weeks in a row. We're flying. Right, our three topics this week. Record game-changing, crazy amount of runs in the Women's Metro Bank. Why? Lancashire, relegated from Division 1, tipped to go straight back up, at bottom of Division 2. Why? And Surrey stifled once more.
Why?
Why are they?
How?
What's happening? What's the teams doing to them when they go and visit their team? Their ground. They're making flat tracks. What do we think about it? We'll work it out. Right, but to begin with, we're going to start with the Women's Metro Bank. So in the last week, the three highest run chases in English domestic women's cricket history have occurred. The top two happened against Surrey in consecutive matches where Warwickshire chased 312 and then Lancashire chased 299. I've got yet more numbers for you, Nick, so just sit tight, okay? We've had 13 centuries in 24 matches. Last year, they had 12 in the entire competition. That was 58 matches. I did some maths, and I need to make people know that this took me a very long time. So I went through every single game. No, I went to CricViz's most runs column, so this doesn't include wides and extras, I apologise. And I added up all the runs that were scored by batters in this year's competition and all the runs that were scored by batters in last year's competition to give me an average of number of runs per match. Last year, in the Rachel Hayhoe Flint, there was an average of 366 runs per match scored. This year, after 24 matches, 436. That's gone up by 70 runs. Nick, one, what do you think of my stat? And two, is this just a small sample size? We're only 20 games in, or is something happening?
I think to answer your first question, what do you think of the stat? 366 feels surprisingly low anyway.
Well, there we go.
You sure about your maths?
I am sure.
That's,
I wouldn't swear by it.
No, the sample size is interesting because obviously it's a smaller sample size than last year, but it is still, as you've proven there, is already at a point where the hundreds have already exceeded what happened last year. So even if there wasn't another 100 now, it'd still be an improvement on last year. I think there is. I suppose there's like that perfect storm element in a sense, isn't there? There's a lot that is different this year from last year. You've got the weather aspect. You've got the fact that, which means there are a lot of flatter pitches, which means a lot of quicker outfields. You've got, and I think this one's relevant actually. You've got the grounds. I think the fact that you've got more games, the vast majority of games being played at first class grounds, which for a long time was a problem in the women's game because being played at club grounds on used wickets and that kind of thing, you're just not going to get high scoring games. It just so happens that the one club ground that has been mainly used so far in this year's competition, Beckenham, say club ground, but non-main first class ground. I know Southport's been used, I know there are a couple of others as well, but Loughborough was used by the Blaze. Beckenham, if you polled all the male and female bats in the country, asked for the flattest deck, the best place to bat in the country, I think most players would say Beckenham. So I think that is relevant. You've got a lot of really good grounds, really good pitches.
But the South East Stars played there, so it's not like that ground was.
They did, which is why I would throw the weather and conditions in as well. But I do think the other relevant point here is, and it sounds, I don't know, like really basic and straightforward to say, I think players are better and players are improving by the year, and not just. And I would say it's as simple as England players are available because actually the leading run scorer in the comp is.
Have I got more numbers for you? I'm so.
But what I would say about the England players, just before we get to the numbers on this, because I think this is a less tangible point I want to make than the one that you're going to make, is that they lift the whole standard, and it's not just, we were both at Beckenham for the first game of the competition when Somerset beat Surrey, chased 230 odd in 30 odd overs.
Yeah.
Heather Knight got runs, but so did Emma Corney batting with her, and I'm not convinced that Emma Corney plays the same knock if she doesn't have Heather Knight at the other end, if that makes sense.
I like that, yeah.
I don't know if that's not disrespectful Emma Corney. It's just I think the entire game is raised when you've got the best players around, and also when there's as much at stake as there is this summer, because everyone has ostensibly been told that I want you to, so by Charlotte was said, I want you all to play county cricket and performances matter. So performances matter not just for the sundry contracted players, but for everyone beyond those deals as well. And I suppose the one caveat to all this is there are still bowlers.
And the bowlers are better as well. But I think so. We have got, well, who better to talk on this issue than the leading run scorer in the competition? Nick spoke to Emma Lamb, and we'll be going to her conversation very shortly. But I think your point of, and this is something she mentions. Sorry, that's why. The second reason why I mentioned that we're speaking to her very shortly is she very plainly said, players are better. Like, people are improving. I think that's something that's interesting and worth noting in terms of, yes, all the England batters are back, and that lifts the standard. But of the 11 batters who have scored centuries this summer, only 2 of them were out in Australia for the Ashes in any format.
Yeah.
Elsewhere, you've got kind of...
And they were Sophia Dunkley and Tammy Beaumont.
Who's got 2 of them. And yes, again, more matches have been played on first-class grounds. 2/3 of the matches this season have been played on first-class grounds compared to pretty much bang on half.
That's a massive difference. And I think if you were to fast forward this by 12 months, without speaking for Surrey, I would be surprised if this time next year Surrey were not playing the 50-over games at the Oval, for example. I think
scores go back down.
But I suppose the other thing you get with, and this is, I might not be right here, but the nature of all cricket that's played on those main first-class grounds at this time of year as well, is you very often play with a very short side, whether that's men's first-class cricket or any cricket that gets played this time of year because of pitches and what's coming up internationally and all that kind of stuff. So so I think it is that perfect storm of things. The fact as well that I wonder if even things like, and this could be complete rubbish, but as bowlers get quicker, more pace on the ball.
The bride and cast effect.
I do
going at 5s all the time.
No, but there is, the women's game has changed so much in the last 5 years. Even and if we go back to that point around players getting better, if you take Surrey to be an example, so previous winters when Surrey were South East Stars, they had very limited use of the marquee, for example, the essentially outdoor pitches through the winter, whereas now I think they use the marquee 4 days a week from the moment the marquee was set up.
Yeah.
So just little things like that. People have been hitting on grass. They then went off to Abu Dhabi for pre-season, as most of the teams did. They went on pre-season tours of some description. They've been hitting for longer. They've not come into April on the back of, a limited wet pre-season in the UK. It feels like a perfect storm. I think the weather has played a big part in that.
Yeah. I really like your point about the kind of, who knew, increased professionalisation and better access to facilities and training and coaching and more cricket makes people practicing something, improve standards.
But practicing in a way that's closer to what you're going to get.
Yes,
on
sorry,
the day
I'm being slightly facetious.
But no, you're right. Like, it's not rocket science when you think about it. And actually, this is, I spoke to Charlotte Edwards a couple of weeks ago at Lords, and she specifically name-checked Emma Lamb, actually, and also Ella McGough, who just made 100 a couple of days earlier for Hampshire. And she just said how thrilled she was and how much she was enjoying it, because this is what, and bear in mind she came into this summer as the Hampshire coach, this is what she wanted to see from a Hampshire perspective, let alone from an England perspective. It has gone as everyone wanted to. The standard has risen, and in fact I've heard it a few times now from players, and Emma Lamb says it in this interview as well. Maybe not the part that we're about to show you, but the version that's online that I've written. She made a really interesting point. She said this is the highest standard of women's domestic cricket that I've ever played, and she's not the first person to say that. And
I reckon we should have kept that bit in.
It was just too far in, and chopping and changing, and got to save something for the online version. But yeah, read it.
Read the piece. Right, I'll echo Charlotte Edwards' sentiment there. The first 2 weeks or 3 weeks, however long it's been now, of Tier 1 comp, I've absolutely loved it. I found it such a fun competition to be keeping on top of, to be working on all of Surrey's matches, to kind of click on scorecards and see names that you recognise, and then it contextualises other non-internationals' performances, because if Emma Corney or whoever scores runs against a bowling attack containing international players, you go like, oh, those runs count. They're good. But yes, to tell us all more about that and to give us a bit more insight into the start of the Women's One Day Cup, sponsored by Metro Bank, here's Emma Lamb.
Well, no, thanks to Emma Lamb for joining us. It's probably gone about as well as you could have hoped for from a first 5 rounds of games. Obviously, we're talking on Thursday, I think, if I've got my days right. Yes, today's Thursday. And so you'll have played again by the time people are hearing this. But at the time of speaking at least, you are the leading run scorer in the country. You're averaging 80 plus. Life must be good.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'm always hoping for more runs. To be honest, don't think as a person, I'd ever settle for um, what I do. I think as a cricketer, you can always strive to be better as well. But yeah, pretty happy individually, and also glad to be back bowling as well. So got a few overs under my belt, not just from the batting side, getting a few runs, but yeah, getting a few overs in and contributing in that as well.
How's it been? You obviously started. I mean, you started pretty ideally, really, didn't you? 130 not out, 3 for 40 odd. Like, you can't. I guess it is all downhill from there. But but yeah. I mean, I guess individually and as a side and playing as Lancs. I know Thunder were basically Lancs for a while, but yeah. Like, how has this month been? I suppose as well as personally, but just sort of more the collective and um, the start of Darwin, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, as a team, we've won 3 out of 5 games, so we've lost 2 games. I think like yesterday's game was, I think, second leading run chase, and yeah, I think anyway that record, which is amazing, and it was very much like a team performance yesterday. Like there was a lot of contributions, and even the games that we've lost, like the 2 games we've lost, have been like very fine margins, like little things that we need to work on as a team, and I think it's just nice to like feel it all coming together, and obviously like personal performance are great to contribute and then also win as well, but yeah, it's nice to see it all coming together this year, and all the hard work people have done over the winter is like it's all coming together.
That record you talk about there, that was the second highest list day run chase in English women's cricket, behind what Bears did to Surrey a few days earlier. So Surrey being on the wrong end of both. But I don't know what I found really interesting, just even looking at the sort of beyond those two run chases. There been a lot of runs this year in the in the One Day Cup, far more than there were at this stage. Let's say in the Hay Flint. Is there any reason for that? Can you put a finger on what's different this year to last year, or is it just a lot of players playing well at the same time?
Oh, I don't know actually. It might be a mixture of both. Maybe like playing well, but also we've not had much rain, so it could be to do with the wickets being pretty good at the moment. Yeah, I don't know. It could be a mixture of both. I'd like to put it down to like women's game getting better, getting stronger, but yeah, probably a mixture in there.
What's been different for you? Like, did you like where did you winter? And I guess how have you come into the season in the form you are?
Um, I put in a lot of work over the winter. To be fair, just like a few key things that I've tried to work on, technically batting and getting back to bowling. I guess getting back to bowling this year because I had a year off to an injury last year. It's kind of like put a lot less pressure on my batting. I think it's helped me personally, like to be able to contribute with both has really helped. So yeah, I guess like just like the hard work I've put in from both sides has helped me get off to a good start. So yeah.
Do you look at the like? Are you aware? You must be aware that you're the leading run scorer in the country. Like, do you look at that, or are you one of these players who just says, you know, leave that, don't look at the stats, don't care?
Um, I mean, I don't really look at it. It's nice to hear, but I don't really look at it. I want to win. For like the main goal is to win, and if that means scoring lots of runs and taking wickets and doing well for my team, that is a big chance that we're going to win games. So yes and no.
And obviously, 5 runs below you, so second on the charts is Eve Jones, your opening part. I mean, what's working so well between you? I guess you've got the very rare for English women's cricket sort of benefit of having a left hand right hand pairing, which is so. I think I can't remember. I don't know if the stat is still the same, but certainly until a couple of years ago, Tash Farrant was England's. In fact, Freya Kemp has replaced Tash Farrant as England's leading left-handed T20I run scorer, which is mad. And I think Tash had scored something like 7. Or no, sorry, it was second behind Lydia, so now must be third, Lydia Greenway. But yeah, it's so rare in the game. Do you find the benefit as a right hander batting with Eve?
Yeah, definitely. I think when you play against teams that have got like that combination, it can be a bit annoying, especially to like bowl at as well. Like I know from like personal point of view, it's quite annoying like to settle in and keep changing lines and change fields. But also like she's got so many runs under her belt and has won plenty of games playing for Sparks over the past years. Playing against has been quite annoying, so it's good to have her on our team, and she's like a very very good friend. So I think like we've got a very good relationship where it works that way. We communicate pretty well when we're out there. But yeah, I think it I guess that combination does work, and a mixture of things that come together.
Obviously, you finished last season in Ireland with the England squad. Um, I just thought I'm thinking over the last 18 months or so that it never felt like you did much wrong to sort of fall out of that setup. But I guess once you're out, then someone new comes in as the strategy changes, went quite hard at the top, and things move on. Like, I guess like is that how you view how you reflect on it as well, and B, how nice was it to be back in that setup, albeit in a very different squad against Ireland last year?
Yeah, yeah, I guess it's quite a weird one for me. Because in hindsight, I think I needed that break, to be honest. And it's been nice to just play for Lancashire for the past year and focus on that. Like focus on winning trophies for Lancs has been like a main goal. And then anything that happens, like England opportunities wise, then that's like a bit out of my control. Can't really do much about that unless like sometimes a coach takes a liking to you, sometimes it works in your favour, but like that's always been something on the back of my mind that I know I can't control, and like whatever happens happens. And yeah, it was nice to be back part of it in the Island series. I enjoy like batting with Tammy, opening the batting with Tammy Beaumont. That's like she's an incredible player to play with, and always learn quite a bit from her. So like little opportunities I get here and there is great, and like it's something I can learn from personally as well.
The Cricketers award winning team brings our subscribers news, features, and insight on county and international cricket every single day. You can try us now by signing up for £1. Yes, you heard that correctly, just £1 at thecricketer.com/digital.
To the County Championship, where we once again had reporters at every match of the latest round of fixtures. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you on YouTube, if you do have this on your screen, will notice a change of background here. That's because we recorded this segment on Lancashire in the morning before they decided to change everything. So in effect, Lancashire were relegated from Division 1 last year. They're winless from their first 5. They just had a catastrophic loss against Northamptonshire where they contrived to collapse from 130 for 2 to 160 all out, chasing 230. They'd won that game several times over. Then captain, an exact choice of words from me, Keaton Jennings said after the match, the disappointing thing for me is we've had 4, 5, 6, 7 opportunities in the game to win it, and we squandered all of those. It's massively concerning, and emotions aside, it's just not good enough. In the last couple of hours, Keaton Jennings has stepped down as Lancashire captain, and the Lancashire have issued a statement both before the resigning of Keaton Jennings, kind of apologising to the fans. Director of Cricket Mark Chilson said, "We're all desperately disappointed with the start of the season over the last 6 weeks and acknowledge that our current form has not been good enough. We apologise to our members and supporters of that. Being bottom of Division 2 is not acceptable." Nick,
Yes.
if we look below the line, and I know you shouldn't take general online opinion to reflect real world opinion, but there is a lot of anger amongst the Lancashire fans at the moment, and a lot of it appears to be directed at the head coach, which is Dale Benkenstein, who took over the new job. He had previously been at Gloucestershire. In effect, this is a team. This is a team who were predicted to get promoted straight away, bounce straight back up to Division 1, and they are languishing at the bottom. What has happened? How has this squad found themselves where they are?
Yeah, I mean, I was at Wanted Road on Friday for the first day of this game, and look, things were not good before then, and I don't think we were far away from this. I say this, like a real outpouring of like public outpouring of anger and what's funny, but I can't. If he'd offered me this turn of events at 12:30 on Friday afternoon, I'd have been absolutely baffled. They had Northant 60 for 6, who won the toss and opted to bat. I truly, to this day, 5-6 days later, cannot believe they lost that game as a starter point. If they win that game,
scorecard.
It's remarkable,
genuinely incredible.
Because Keaton is right; they lost that game not just because they collapsed for 116 for 2 in the fourth innings. They had that game won so many times. Ben Sanderson waxed the second fastest 50 in Northant's history at one point when they're 180 for 8. Mad game, and I suppose the kind of game that reflects where they're at, Lanks, and also, to be fair, I think the kind of game that reflects and I don't say justifies the anger, but it does, at least explains the anger from outside. Like, it's very easy, I think, it's very easy and very natural as well to go, who's the figurehead? Who's the one who's overseeing this? And the one overseeing it, and the figurehead is Dale Benkenstein, the head coach, who came to Lancs ostensibly because he'd been the batting coach a couple of years previously. They really liked him. He went off to Gloucestershire, didn't really work out at Gloucestershire for several reasons. And Lancashire, they do love an internal hire. If you think of Glenn Chappell, Mark Chilton, operating above him with Paul Allott, in that role, it's a lot of Lancashire people. Stephen Parry's been on the staff. There's a lot of Lancs, and Benkenstein wasn't quite internal, but he wasn't quite a fresh voice, if you know what I mean. It's very easy to look at it and go, Dale Benkenstein, Gloucestershire finished bottom with him in charge. They then went into Division 2, and they finished bottom there, and they went into Division 2. And look, we can't hide it. The parallels are pretty
stark. They're there.
I want to add some colour and some mitigation, partly because I like Dale, and that's not why. But I think it's important to be fair to. I guess the reason this podcast exists is to try and go into the weeds slightly more than just saying, 2 + 2 must equal 4. And obviously it does mathematically. But Dale Benkenstein's time at Gloucestershire was awkward. They were promoted in 2019 before COVID, with Richard Dawson in charge. By the time Dale Benkenstein was in charge, the year was 2022. We'd had 2 years of sort of weird first-class cricket. We had the Bobbers Trophy, then we had the conference system. And by the time Gloucester were actually in Division 1, their best bowler from 2019 was David Payne. He's hardly played any red ball cricket since. And Ryan Higgins rejoined Middlesex halfway through that season. Higgins scored 950 runs and took 50 wickets in their promotion season. He remains one of the best county cricketers in the country. They signed Naseem Shah as their overseas player. He was injured before he'd even bowled a ball in first-class cricket. He hurt his shoulder batting on day one, ironically, at Wanted Road. Not a place Lovely. Dale Benkenstein loves, I'd imagine. But so look, there was mitigation to that relegation. A lot went on, behind the scenes. He came in with Steve Snell as a performance director. A lot of change at Gloucestershire that was different from when they'd been promoted. The second year, when they went winless in Division 2, look, for any team coming down from Division 1, that is a pretty unacceptable state of affairs. Yeah. There is no counter-argument to that. The mitigation would be that they had a young squad. I don't think it's great mitigation because there are a lot of good players in that squad, and they also had Marcus Harris, who I think it is worth saying is a Dale Benkenstein signing and is now the captain, the interim captain.
Yeah.
Dale Benkenstein, it's important to say, was not the head coach. Was the head coach, but was not responsible for a lot of the overseas recruitment. Nathan Lyon's recruitment initially for the full season, which ended up being a 7-game championship only end in July situation, which worked for no one, particularly when Tom Hartley went to India, had the series he had in India, came back, and then suddenly there was this talk of bed blocking. How do we get Hartley into the side?
Yeah.
Around line, all that stuff. That disrupted them. The end of the season with Venkatesh Iyer as an overseas player. I don't think for much reason other than that they wanted an Indian presence. And, it wasn't a cricketing decision because he ended up batting at number 8 below Rocky Flintoff, who was a 16-year-old kid at the time. So
I think if I'm a Lancashire fan and I'm listening to kind of the mitigation of Gloucestershire and
no,
what I think.
I don't want to call it. It's background rather than mitigation because I do think.
But that makes sense. But I think if I'm a Lancashire fan, I'm in effect saying, so what?
Yeah,
why is this not? Why have we not had the hard reset this year? Where we had poor overseas recruitment last year, but we've gone down a division and we're winless after 5. I think but can I ask you 2 questions? I want to ask something there because on the one hand, I completely get on the surface why there'd be such frustration at Lancashire's lack of results. On the other hand, they hadn't. This was their first loss. They'd drawn 4 matches.
Yeah, but look,
they were behind in the 8. They were behind in a lot of them, so that also does need to be taken into account. But was the feeling that 100 runs and a 4-wicket win would have fixed all of this? I must admit, I'm kind of coming from afar, wondering.
There's long-standing, not I was going to say apathy. It's certainly not apathy. There's long-standing irritation, frustration, anger at the way that Lancashire are being run. Some things have happened off the field. The members have been very vocal. Certainly on social media, there's the open letter that was published by them a few days ago, and they hired a head coach who hadn't won a game in the previous season to replace Glenn Chappell, a legend of the club. And that is, I should say, none of what I just said there is to say that Benkisan is the perfect head coach. Actually, I think he's a very good skills coach, and I've heard players say how hard he works and how hard he works and how passionate he is about his players and how much they admire that trait. But equally, there are certainly, that's not to say he's the best at managing upwards in the world. But equally, where I'm more fascinated than anything else, so without giving you having an answer here, really, is how that squad, Jennings, but that side, Jennings, Bell, Bohannon, Harris, Luke Wells, Balderson, Matt Hurst, Hartley, Sakib, John Turner, Tom Bailey, Will Williams. These are guys. That is a pretty, on paper, a pretty good Division 1 team, let alone a Division 2 team. How that squad has had the run of results it's had, and culminating in, I know it's symbolic at this point, we're 5 games into the season, but Lancashire with that squad, with the expectations, with the size of the club, to be bottom of Division 2, while, no disrespect to them, Leicestershire and Derbyshire are occupying the 2 promotion spaces. I can absolutely see why this is the moment that's led fans to go, the fans have not started saying this now, but I can see why this has become the crunch point where there's been an apology from Mark Hilton. And Mark Hilton, the director of cricket, is overseeing this. I feel for Keaton Jennings. I saw a couple of people on social media say, we wanted change, but this is not the one we meant. I think you'll hear a lot of people say there aren't many better people in county cricket than Keaton Jennings. He wouldn't necessarily
friend
say
of the show.
And he wouldn't say necessarily that his form has fallen off a cliff. But there is something remarkable about the leading run scorer in the division, having 750 runs, being 250 away from 1,000 before the end of May, and playing for the 18th place team on the circuit that hasn't won a game. It's mad. He's taken over as captain. He knows Benkenstein probably as well as Jennings does because he worked with Benkenstein at Gloucestershire. Jennings worked knew him at Durham, I think. So, or failing that from the South African connections. Look, there are the pitches there have been flat at Old Trafford. That's a supplementary issue. I mean, when you said before, they've been behind the 8 ball in games. We've said in this podcast before that we talked last week actually about Gloucestershire and how I said that I thought they were playing some of the better cricket in the country. And actually, while a position might not show you, while their position, they're only 1 spot above Lancashire, doesn't tell you that. What does tell you something is the number of bonus points they've picked up. Whereas Lancashire have done a lot of their good work in saving games. And from behind in games. And that is, so yes, they've only lost once, but they could have beaten Middlesex in the first round. They could also have lost that game. They ended up 2 wickets in hand defending. There's also lack of overseas. Like yes, they've got Marcus Harris right this year, and Anderson Phillips come back as an overseas player, but there's a real lack of investment domestically in that squad as well. The names I just reeled off before, how many of those John Turner's on loan, Nose Benkenstein go back to Hilton College in South Africa. Luke Wells came in a couple of years ago. There's not been a great deal of investment in that squad domestically, while at the same time they have lost the likes of, in the past few years, for different reasons, Hasipa Mead to Nottinghamshire, Matt Parkinson to Kent via a whole season out on loan at Durham. How many of those bodies, as much as anything, have been Dane Vilas, another one, was a very good experienced player, moved on. Did they replace his experience, his runs? Probably not, you'd say. So, I don't think that's necessarily an answer, because I don't think, we probably both tipped them to fly back up to Division 1. I don't know the answer.
Well,
They've also got this underlying thing, Daniel Kidney, the chief executive, spoken about before. They've got all these players who don't play very much for Lancashire. So Luke Wood today is back in England squad, isn't he? And I'd kind of forgotten that he was about.
Lancashire through and through. We spoke about that together when we were together in my house, and I typed in Lancashire into kind of Google, and it chucks up the player profiles, and name number 1 is Joss Butler, and you go, oh yeah, he's a Lancashire player.
Well, it'd be interesting. I mean, Liam Livingston isn't in the England
he's not
squads.
in the England squads. I think
of course, sorry, the one name we've not mentioned at all somehow in that little period is James Anderson. And you do wonder whether, James Anderson will make Lancashire a better team, yes. Should you be planning to have a 43-year-old seamer around all season? Probably not.
No.
And so I think
got 2 games to go, and then it's the white ball break. And
no, completely. Obviously, he's had his injury, and I think he's due to be back this week. But when they play Derbyshire, but it is worth. So I struggle with James Anderson's absence being an excuse, because there's another world here where James Anderson's being wrapped in cotton wool because he's got a Test summer coming up, and likewise actually, and someone made the point to me earlier, and this is to I guess not to mitigate it, but to say it's not the end. Things are not the end of the world here. Lancashire play Derbyshire this weekend. Derbyshire is second. If Lancashire beat Derbyshire, they've got identical records: 6 games, 1 win, 4 draws, 1 defeat. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Lancashire went up in 3 months' time, because they've got the squad to do it, right?
Well, I hope for Lancashire's sake that we all kind of look back on this. But I don't think it will be. It's very clear that the problems at Lancashire and the frustrations of the fan base
go well beyond 5 games.
Are well beyond
5
games of Division 2 and what's happening on the pitch. And this was kind of the blue light. What is that phrase? Blue light paper? Something like that.
Blue touch paper. Straw that broke the camel's back is what I was going to go with.
I really wanted to avoid the straw that broke the camel's back, but we have moved on there and moved there. I think, as crass and as twee as it may sound, as an outsider, this is something you're more across than I am. I quite enjoy seeing moments of genuine passion. Admittedly, in this case, it's anger and a negative emotion in a county fan base, because I don't think it's something you really kind of see often, and kind of seeing the kind of Twitter diatribes, the words that's come to mind, but it's not the right word, and seeing like genuine feelings and emotions.
I misused the word apathy before. I misused apathy before, and I'd much rather see this. I think this is much healthier for the game than apathy and people going like.
Right. We're going to have a very crass and obvious edit back out of this into live time when me and Nick were already together, and the mention of James Anderson is going to have plucked us into talking about the cricket draft. And then Nick, I can already tell you, he tells a wonderful anecdote relating to Sussex County Cricket Club. So if you are interested in that, make sure you stay tuned, because in about 3 minutes in the future, Nick's going to be treating your ears. There is a chance that Jimmy Anderson is going to play against Derbyshire. That is one to keep an eye on. So if you do want to get him into your team, make sure to pick him. I would find it really funny if it'd be so classic if you do like a whole deep dive post-mortem into Lancashire's woes, and you go, we just get someone who's really good at taking wickets, and then everything's fine again. If you pick better players, you become a better team. What can you do? Right.
Other cricket drafts suggestions, if I may. Come on then. Couple of what I was at Hove yesterday to watch Sussex complete their win over Worcestershire. Ollie Robinson played the whole game with a little ankle niggle. wouldn't be a surprise if he missed out at Taunton. So
That's great info.
Maybe take him out of your side. Jacob Duffy of Worcestershire missed that game at Hove. I think they're hoping to have him fit for their next game, which I believe is against Essex. Sussex are also, I think... Sussex got Nathan McAndrew back now, who replaces Jaden Seals, who is done, and him finishing coincide with him being injured for that last game. McAndrew might be one to get back into your side. He's arrived in the country. He's got a week to lead into the game. They've also got James Hayes, who... Great fun this. You hear about this James Hayes story?
Well, he was signed from Notts.
So James Hayes, who's from Sussex, was... So on Thursday evening, it became clear that Jaden Seals wouldn't be fit for this game just gone. So at 7 o'clock, Paul Farbrace, my God. Paul Farbrace was started talking to Kevin Shine, the Nottinghamshire bowling coach, about James Hayes. They quickly signed him 7 o'clock on the night before the game. James Hayes arrives down in Sussex, where he's from, at about 10 to 1 in the morning. Goes straight into their side 11 hours later to face Worcestershire. Comes out to bat at number 11 with Jack Carson, fairly near a maiden professional 100. And I wasn't there on the first day, but I'm told that Carson started to play a few shots. And Farbrace felt the need to send a message out going, mate, just so you know, the bloke at the other end can actually bat. And James Hayes, to his enormous credit, faced 120 balls, was 33 not out, saw Carson through to his 100, and then had Henry Nichols, the New Zealand batter, gloved down the leg side in the second innings for his first-class wicket, which also kind of set that win up. Anyway, long story short, he's staying with them for their game at Somerset. So another potential little cricket drafty one if you're looking for a slightly out there seamer.
That's, you know what? That's why they pay you the big bucks, mate, for little insights like that.
On the other side of the seam situation, Kent, as ever, have no seamers left. Adam Hollyoake was very funny after their 2.5 day mauling by Glamorgan. I was at Canterbury on Sunday, and he said, well, we're never going to have all four of our first choice attack back together because Jazz Singh's out for the season and Keith Dudgeon's done his ACL and he's out for the season. He said, but we can get back to 2 hopefully, and they're hoping to do that this week. Nathan Gilchrist is back from concussion, so they're back to 2 out of 4.
Who's number 1?
Number 1 is
George Garrett.
Don't ask me these questions.
Grant Stewart.
Grant Stewart. Cashier lovely situation. Oh, this was a lovely situation at Canterbury on day 3. A ludicrous rule, by the way, that we should get into properly one day. Over rates. So Glamorgan were behind on their over rate. They need 1 wicket to beat Kent inside 2.5 days with 150 overs to spare. But because of the over rate situation, they felt compelled to bowl part-time off spin from both ends to try and get their rates up. At which point, Cashier started mowing sixes over the marquee. So the over was taking 10 minutes anyway, which is a lovely, just nonsense. Just change the rules.
Well,
that was the cricket draft.
Kent lot, yeah, that was the best cricket draft yet by miles. I just had a little James Anson one. You came in with some lovely tidbits. Kent, look, I reckon there could be a county conversation episode focusing on them coming up very soon. Well, I don't know. They had such an eclectic season because they got 2 wins. They
got the 2 wins in April, and then, as seems to happen every year there, everyone got injured. And now it's all gone a bit
south.
I said to because Adam Hollyoake said to me after, we're looking to the low market, we'll see if there are any overseas guys we could bring in, and I tried to help, and I said, is there any chance you could, Wes Agar could come over slightly earlier than the Blast, Tom Rogers the same, and Adam said, well, Wes is being held back by South Australia, and the money's workloads, and Tom Rogers is specifically a T20 deal. My point was kind of, could you change that deal? And he smiled and went, thanks for the suggestions. So I'm happy to help.
I do like that you were.
I was asking. I didn't think he'd not thought of these things.
Goodness me, Nick Friend, journalist and agent, and Kent's director of cricket. Right, part 3, Nick.
Yes.
Have teams found a way of stopping Surrey? So Surrey have now played for their first 5 matches of the county championship, 3 of which have been away and 3 of which have been incredibly dull draws. Across their 3 away matches, out of a possible 120 wickets to have fallen, 57 have been taken. So less than half the possible amount of wickets that could have occurred. That's not a good sentence. There's been 10 hundreds in 3 matches after day 1 of this latest draw at Edgbaston, Jade Dernbach, the kind of assistant coach, said the pitch has played as we expected it to, and we're getting used to this now away from home. This seems to be what we are going to face now away from the Oval. It's attritional cricket. Personally, I'll start. I don't have a problem with it. I think if you are the team that has won 3 leagues in a row, and your opponents need to find a way to stop you from winning, because Surrey won matches. They had that 5-man seam attack that they could just rotate round and round and round. It was relentless. It was X. It was Y. If you go, you know what? We're just going to nullify those guys. You guys have actively chosen to move away from having a specialist spinner in recent years to have this rotating seam attack. You're going to back yourself with Will Jacks's off spin, or you're going to back yourself with Dan Lawrence, or you're going to back yourself with Cameron Steele. We're going to back our batters to find that not a problem. You're going to have 7 draws away from home. We're going to take points away from you in every single game, and we'll win enough to challenge you.
Yeah. I'm surprised it's taken this long.
I think all is fair in love and war. And, yeah, I wouldn't recommend... If you see Surrey are playing at a ground near you anytime soon, that's not the Oval, I wouldn't go. I really wouldn't go. But what can you do?
It reminds me of... I love it when a lower league team or on a side lower down the Premier League doesn't water the pitch. You know what I mean? Like teams would try to stop Man City by not putting the sprinklers on before the game, so having it slightly slower and a bit. You've got to disrupt the best teams, right? And like
when teams would move in the advertising hoardings if they're playing.
Yeah, the Roy Delapse. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like county cricket and the county championship particularly gets caught up in this. This endless debate about what it exists for. Are you here to produce the best cricket for England, or are you here to try and win as a county? And it goes through cycles. And no doubt, if England were to get hammered in Australia this winter, I'm sure we'll be having the same discussion this time next year. But actually, just going turgid because you think that is your best way of winning a particular game, it is on the scale of pitches, it's just another bit, isn't it? It's no different in a sense to have a big green top or raging Turner. Flatty is just another option. It's a way we see ourselves beating you or stopping you winning. And ultimately, I kind of think, as I said before, I'm kind of surprised people haven't done it to this to these extremes before. And yes, to go back to the point that we made around the women's run fest, the weather plays a part in this. It is dry, it's flat, it's easy to do it when it is like this. It wouldn't at all surprise me as well if Surrey ended this. Surrey are very malleable with their overseas selection. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they ended the season with Ravi Chandran Ashwin, for example, someone like that, a high quality spinner. Because I should also say, I'm not for a second saying that if Surrey had a spinner, they'd have ripped through Warwickshire twice. It was obviously very flat.
It'd have been easier though.
Neither team picked a spinner. Neither team picked a specialist spinner. It was you had Rob Yates versus Dan Lawrence versus Cam Steele.
Don't forget Bo Webster. Very disrespectful.
That's kind of the point. The bloke's third skill.
It's actually not. Second, he was a spinner before he was a seamer.
But it's an intriguing one. I don't think I'm that. I wouldn't even call it a plight. It's just a way that teams are trying to beat them, right?
I'm very confused at the moment, Nick, because before we hit record, you were having a moan about how you didn't like it.
No.
We were going to save it. We were going to save it.
No. I don't like. No. You've got the wrong end of the stick.
Have I? Okay.
I don't like the idea that it's considered to be a problem.
My goodness me, that's confusing phrasing. The way you start, you're like,
apologies. No. Why? I think you are a turkey vote for Christmas if you've got Dan Worrell coming to visit you and you produce a lovely little moist green top and you lose the toss on it. Why would you?
I do, and also the idea that kind of it's bad for the game. Well, it's half of Surrey matches. It's half of Surrey's matches, but it's only one of everyone else's.
But it's also there's also one thing I don't like with when you get games like this is the narrative that the hundreds somehow don't count. You've still got to, do you know what I mean? You've still got to get.
They count less. They definitely count less.
Maybe so. He's still got to get the runs. And like that game on that pitch doesn't start off. You don't rock up on day one and go, well, that's going to be 650, and then Matt Fish is going to bat for 3/4 of the day.
You need to you need to look. Everyone needs to go and watch Dan Lawrence's reaction to getting out in Surrey's first.
Oh my God!
They did follow on, but like
it's one hell of a death, isn't it?
He nicks off to Rob Yates, caught behind. He's on 45. And he genuinely turns round in slow motion, and he's there. He's like, "I've left 7,000 out there."
I thought the best dismissal of the game actually was Alex Davis's dismissal on the first day.
Oh yeah.
So that's
to
one I thought
Dan
you were
Lawrence himself.
Yeah.
No. He did the same. Alex Davis, another thing to go and watch.
Mr. Full Toss, isn't he? From Dan Lawrence.
One of his 2 sixes, he pulled one of the seamers. It sounds so beautiful, and then he's charged down the wicket at Dan Lawrence, who again is bowling so many overs for Surrey this year. Misses a full toss. The final scores of that game, Warwickshire finished 665 for 5 declared. Surrey, actually, Ben Folkes played a very, very fine innings. He got a career best 174 not out. To help Surrey avoid the follow-on, him and Matt Fisher, for the 10th wicket, added 150.
They didn't quite avoid it though, did they?
Good point.
This was I was really intrigued by this all day, because when it got to a point where it was obviously too flat for a result.
Yeah.
I mean, even if Warwickshire had been 280 ahead, and they'd I was looking at it being like, I guess optically you have to enforce it because you could win. But you've probably got Bamber and Hannon Dolby, and I think Rob Yates bowled about 40 overs. You've probably got Rob Yates who's got to have to over the batting if they don't enforce it.
Yeah.
They're probably looking at Alex Davis being like, mate, I reckon we just bat
again. Yeah,
let's bat him out of it.
Yeah. As it happened, they just bowled 5 overs of the follow-on, and I think that was kind of symbolic as anything to be like, look, we won. Like that's a draw, but we won. 2 very impressive wickets. I think we haven't actually quite emphasised enough. Warwickshire probably did have a real chance to win that match. They had a little burst where Surrey just started being a bit silly. They lost Dan Lawrence and Jason Roy in quick succession, and Jason Roy.
You can't just scan over that.
We will talk about that.
They found Jason Roy and they lost Jason Roy.
We'll talk about that because I've got a couple of side notes I want to talk about in this match, which I think are very interesting. And then Surrey, when they were 9 down, were the best part of 300 behind, and that was kind of
3.5 sessions to go.
3.5 sessions to go. So fair play to Fisher and Folkes. They've saved Surrey there. But the side notes I want to talk about in this match, because there were 3 other things I found very interesting. 1, Surrey have signed overseas Aussie Test batter Curtis Patterson. In the squad, not selected. He's not injured. He's not nothing.
He arrived in decent time as well, didn't he?
They just
it wasn't like off the plane and went to Edgbaston.
Didn't pick him. And as far as there must be some miscommunications in some of Surrey's recruitment, because you just didn't want him. Well, you must have just not wanted him, because Jason Roy, by all accounts, has been hitting red balls for a long time now. At the moment, I think there's been an assumption, a prediction that he might be making this return at some point. And so with Jamie Smith and Ollie Pope going off to the Test squad, they've signed a Test overseas batter, and instead they've plucked Jason Roy.
Is it possible that, with it being at Edgbaston, the scene of Jason Roy's greatest knock for England in the World Cup semi-final against Australia, they just went, no, maybe they'll do that again?
No,
we want to see it.
No, that's not
the walking punch through extra cover off Mitchell Starc remains the best shot played by an England cricketer.
Jason Roy went in that era of ODI cricket where he opened the batting.
Was amazing.
Was one of the best.
Amazing.
Most aesthetic cricketers in history. As it happened, he got 2 off 9 balls and got out trying to go back to because of where county cricket is played on squares. So at Edgbaston they're way over to one side. Like the sight screen's going over blocks of seating. You've got a tiny boundary one edge. The boundary's massive on the other side, and so you see the wide shot of dismissal, and he's swept this ball, and whoever the fielder is who's taking the catch is at 2/3 deep square leg.
It was one of those ones. It felt a very club crickety position. It was there. 6 on the other side of the ground.
But genuinely remarkable. It'll be interesting.
Hover, mate. Hover.
It'll be interesting to see if he plays any more. Curtis Patterson, I thought he signed for 2 or 3 matches. I need to double check
3,
that.
But now
signed
2.
For 3, but now 2 left. Will he play again? I don't know.
There's no again. Will he play? Surely.
The second thing I found interesting and worth of note, it's worth reading Mel Farrell's piece from day 1 or 2 of that match. Zen Malik, another of Saka's graduates, 27 years old, in his second professional match, scored a century. It does count. It does count.
Well, but actually, you talked about Zen Malik on here last week, and because he made a match-winning 49 not out to beat Yorkshire. And,
I reckon that's better innings than this one.
Yeah, but I think either way, it's important to say, these might have been easier runs, but he can obviously, he's as you said last week, everyone who's seen him knows the player. The one thing to add on, not on Zen, but on Saka actually, Saka and Warwickshire, is they then signed in the same week Vanch Jani, who. It's weird. I don't know Vanch personally, but we played in the same league, and
Isn't he not, how old is he?
He's 19. But
you're 29.
I'm 30. But what I would say, what I want to say is,
what? You know him?
No, because what I was going to say is he plays club cricket for Richmond.
Okay.
He came through Middlesex's pathway, and if you ask anyone in club cricket, they would say no one has been more deserving of a deal. He has scored a zillion runs for Richmond, a zillion runs in twos cricket, a zillion runs in grade cricket, and a really, really thoroughly deserved gig at a county who have really who've massively benefited from Saka and and in fact in a region rather, Worcestershire as well, and who signed Keshi Fali as the first graduate, and and Tom Brown obviously who founded Saka, has worked a lot at Warwickshire over the years, and they're reaping the rewards with Zen and hopefully with Vanch as well.
Well, I think I would have mentioned this last week, and it's a terrible way to judge and rate players, but speaking to my friends who play either second 11 county cricket or minor counties cricket or Prem cricket, who are all, I think, weirdly good judges of players because they're so embittered and horrible, they say everyone's bad.
Yeah.
And the people I know who have played against Zen Malik go, he's unbelievable. And you think, wow, you're normally such misery guts. So there we go. If rather than him scoring 100 against the reigning champions in county cricket, if you want to take that as your kind of barometer of him being a good cricketer, you can do, or you can take my loose anecdote. Finally, the final interesting thing from this match was 21-year-old Simmons playing just his second first-class match. He played one last year, did very well in it, bowling rockets. Dismissed Jordan Clark and Nathan Smith with two really quick short balls from round the wicket on a track where otherwise 20 wickets fell across 4 days. And we got George Dobell, who was on the ground to give us the lowdown on this exciting young prospect.
So Shay Simmons' figures in that game against Surrey are pretty unremarkable. I think he finished with 2 for 86. But he did show glimpses of what he could be. So look, he's 21. He's only playing his second first-class game. And the batters he dismissed were, they're in the lower half of the Surrey order. I think it was Jordan Clark and Nathan Smith. So they're not hopeless by any means. I mean, they're decent. But what happened is he basically bounced them out on a very placid pitch. And no one else in the game could do that. And it suggests that there is something there, some potential. He was bowling up at 86 miles an hour. So he's the quickest bowler on Warwickshire's staff. And in an era where there aren't that many fast bowlers in county cricket, he showed pretty high potential, I think. Equally, it showed what might have happened on that surface if either side had experienced quality fast bowlers or specialist spinners. That pitch will get a lot of criticism. I didn't think it was that bad. It wasn't great by any means. The balance was wrong. But I've seen an awful lot worse. And if we want to produce players who are ready for Test cricket, who have the skills to take wickets on test surfaces, we might need to see more such pitches like this, pitches which encourage the need for pace, high skill and spin. Anyway, Shay Simmons, he's 21, he is one to look out for, and that spell was really unusual in the circumstances.
That's everything for this week. The County Conversation podcast is sponsored by Daffabet, the world's leading online betting site. To find out more, visit daffabet.com. I've been Cameron Ponsonby. Thanks very much to Nick Friend, Emma Lamb and George Dobell for joining us, and we will see you and speak to you again next week.